Part 49. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 481. Chapter 481, Arriving at Xuanhuan Sect, 4. Yanxiangluo looked at the darkening sky. After Qihao stopped practicing again to recover his spiritual energy, he took out some food and handed it to him. Gather it yourself and eat it when you are hungry. Qihao only ate breakfast today and didn't eat lunch or dinner. His cultivation level has not reached the point where he can't be hungry without eating. He was really hungry. He immediately took the food given by his master, put some away, and then ate it with big mouthfuls. Eat up. Everything he eats when he is hungry is delicious, not to mention that what Yanxiangluo gives him is spiritual food with spiritual energy. Qihao feels that he has never eaten such delicious food. Obviously, he usually eats these things. At this time, he felt extremely happy in his heart. The master was just like his mother and was very good to him. Yanxiangluo also sat beside him and ate with him. They could barely sit down on the narrow steps, master and disciple. Qihao felt very happy even though it was crowded. From a distance, the master and the apprentice looked like a pair of siblings, sitting on the steps to rest when they were tired from walking. Mu Changling was extremely envious when he saw it, and said with emotion, "I don't think the few disciples I had got along with them were as good as them. By the way, how old and what are the cultivation levels of my disciples?" Deng Chang's was stunned for a moment by Mu Changling's ancestors' thinking, and then he frowned and thought for a moment. Mu Changling's disciples are like ancestors to them. After all, people in Tianqian continent only have a lifespan of 100 years. All disciples of the Xuanhuan sect have read the historical records of the Xuanhuan sect that record their ancestors, but who cares how old each ancestor lived? The main concern is what level of cultivation they have reached and how famous they are. Fortunately, he has a good memory, and he never forgets almost all the books he has read, and he recounts the lives of several disciples of Mu Changling. Mu Changling was very emotional after hearing this. When I left, they were all young people in their 20s and 30s. Now think about it, they have left for more than 3,000 years, but I, an old guy, am still alive. Deng Chang's was very emotional after hearing what he said. After coming to the higher continent, he also learned that the longevity of monks here is determined by their cultivation, except for accidental death of course. But he didn't expect that his ancestor Mu Changling was still alive. He was more than 3,600 years old. You must know that the lifespan of those under the clan level is only 100 years, and the lifespan will only increase after crossing the clan level, but the lifespan will not increase much below. Only after surpassing the level, the lifespan will increase by thousands. The levels of cultivation, Shi, Yuan, Ling, Wang, Zun, and Zong are only the first level of cultivation. Only after passing this level can you be considered to have some talent. One can only be considered a genius if he breaks through to the level. The longevity of monks is also the same, there is a huge change at the sect level. After passing the zone level, the lifespan can be increased by 100 years, that is, people who have cultivated at the zone level have a lifespan of 200 years. The same applies to the subsequent emperor, saint, and god levels. Every time you break through a major level, your lifespan will be increased by 100 years. In other words, after you break through to the level, you will have a lifespan of 500 years. This is what ordinary people envy monks the most. 500 years is equivalent to 5 lives they have lived. But what monks yearn for most is cultivation above the level. Beyond the level, there are cultivation levels such as lower god, demigod, upper god, asking questions, transcending tribulations, and ascension. It seems difficult to break through to the level, but every level above the level is more than 10 times more difficult than breaking through to the level. You can imagine how difficult it is to break through. But the rewards are also more than doubled, such as longevity. Breaking through each level will increase your lifespan by 1000 years. It can be seen that Mu Changling has lived for more than 3000 years now. What level is he? Let's put it this way, the people in the entire higher continent who have lived for more than 3000 years can be counted on one hand, which shows Mu Changling's status in the higher continent. Of course, this number refers to the existence of powerful men who are more than 3000 years old and are known to the entire continent. People like Mu Changling are in a sect that no one cares about or even knows about. The smallest sect cannot be smaller. It's impossible to be a strong person. He's the only one, but there won't be many. Tell me about Xiao Luo. Although Mu Changling was born and raised as a lower-class mainlander, more than 3000 years have passed, and his memory of his hometown has become increasingly blurred. Besides, 3000 years have passed, and the changes in Tianqian continent will not be small. The people from his hometown finally came, and they were from the Xuanhuan sect, which brought back many memories that he had forgotten in the long years. Deng Changs briefly told Mu Changling about Yan Xiangluo's life experience, and also detailed the situation of the Xuanhuan sect in Tianqian continent. The two of them talked like this and waited for Yan Xiangluo and Qi Hao to come up, and they waited until the evening of the next day. The disciples of Xuanhuan sect are very curious, who is the person who can make the ancestor come out and wait for 2 days? Finally, in the afterglow of the evening, Qi Hao climbed up the last step. The resistance from the steps disappeared instantly, and a comfortable power spread throughout his body from his dantian. When the light of promotion fell, Qi Hao was very pleasantly surprised. He quickly sat down cross-legged and started to advance. Yan Xiangluo, who came up next, was not surprised at all. She accompanied Qi Hao all the way up, and she was very aware of the role of experience in the entire step. Anyone who can go up will gain a lot. Promotion is only one of them. Wait for it later. The benefits will gradually appear during practice. Yan Xiangluo didn't care about his apprentice's promotion, and his eyes fell on the two people standing in front of the mountain gate. Among them, she recognized her master, but she had never seen the other old man with white hair and white beard, but she thought he looked familiar. When she thought about it carefully, her almond-shaped eyes suddenly burst into surprise, and she rushed over in an instant and stared closely at him. Looking at the old man. "Are you the ancestor Mu Changling?" Mu Changling's eyes followed Yan Xiangluo's words and burst out with a brightness that hadn't been seen for a long time. The little girl is indeed smart. Yan Xiangluo quickly waved her hands and said, "Ancestor praised me. I saw your ancestor's portrait, so I can recognize your ancestor. Ancestor, it's great to see you." When she first got the Changling spear, Yan Xiangluo had a wish in her heart. When she came to the higher continent, if her ancestors were still there, she would definitely come to pay homage to her ancestors and thank them. But at that time, she didn't know how long the senior mainland monks lived. More than 3000 years had passed, and she didn't know if Mu Changling was still alive. Now that she saw him with her own eyes, how could she not be excited? Her long caltrop spear and alchemy furnace stone nest were both obtained because of her ancestors. As soon as she finished speaking, her thoughts moved, and the Changling spear appeared in her hand. Because Jin Huang's Changling spear was contracted with her, her cultivation level increased, and the Changling spear also grew. Now it looks the same as when she first got it. Although it is the same, the breath has changed a lot. Seeing the Changling spear again, Mu Changling's eyes became hot. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 482. Ancestor, look at the Changling spear, Yan Xiangluo said with great interest. Okay. Mu Changling saw the changes in the Changling spear at a glance and was extremely pleased. After saying yes 3 times in a row, Mu Changling added, "It was a very correct decision for me to keep the Changling spear. Although it may seem a bit unconventional for a pretty little girl to hold a weapon like a golden spear, Being able to contract the spear means that she is the approved owner of the spear. Didn't you see that the Qiangling spear didn't react at all when seeing himself as the forger? This is the state of the weapon spirit after recognizing its master. After recognizing its master, the weapon spirit no longer sees anyone else, and even ignores himself as the forger. I like the Qiangling spear very much, Yanxiangluo said with a smile. She was telling the truth. Whether using spiritual power or vitality, the Qiangling spear is a very handy weapon. The ancestor did not regret keeping the long caltrop spear, which shows that he is very satisfied with his master. Mu Qiangling could see that Yanxiangluo really liked the Qiangling spear. When I was refining the Qiangling spear, I was not able to refine a weapon with spiritual consciousness due to my strength. However, during the refining process, because it was refining in an open-air field, a black ball fell from the sky. The object was not big but very fast. I didn't even see what it was, and it fell into the refining furnace before I could stop it. But the refining had already started, and when it stopped, all the refining materials were destroyed. I could only continue refining with a glimmer of hope, and ended up refining the Qiangling spear. Yanxiangluo and Deng Changs were both stunned. Neither of them expected that the refining of the Qiangling spear would have such a thrilling process. They were all curious about what was falling. Mu Qiangling continued, although the Qiangling spear was refined by me, it has its own spiritual consciousness and I can't contract it. Since I can't contract it, just name it after me. From now on I put it in the weapons arsenal, hoping that the destined disciples could contract it. When I left the mainland, there was no disciple who could contract it, so I wanted to bring it to the higher continent to see if its owner was in the higher continent, but I couldn't take it away, so I realized that it was waiting for its owner, and its owner was in the lower continent. I didn't expect it to wait for more than 3,000 years to wait for you. Mu Qiangling's words surprised both Yanxiangluo and Deng Changs. Mu Qiangling didn't tell anyone these things, so they naturally didn't know. Deng Changs looked at the long spear in Yanxiangluo's hand and didn't know what to think of it. This opportunity is too puzzling. A spear actually knew that its owner would appear 3,000 years later, and would appear in the Xuanhuan section, yet it actually waited until it happened. How could it be so fantastic? Yanxiangluo also found it very strange, but no matter what the reason was, the Qiangling spear was already hers. It had been with her for more than 3 years. Even if there was some fate, she would not give up. Deng Changs glanced at the people in the mountain gate who were looking secretly at them and interrupted the conversation between the two. The Qiangling spear belonged to his young apprentice. No matter what the origin, it belonged to his young apprentice. This topic was not suitable for discussion. Too much to say. He said casually, "Xiao Luo, you don't even think about master." Only then did Yanxiangluo remember that she was too excited to see her ancestor Mu Qiangling and ignored her master because of the Qiangling spear. She immediately put away the Qiangling spear and rushed to Deng Changs, hugging his arm and rubbing her affectionately. "Think about it, think about it." Seeing his little apprentice being so intimate with him, Deng Changs immediately smiled. He did not marry a wife and have children, but raised his little apprentice as a daughter. How could he not be happy when he saw his child so close to him? Mu Qiangling suddenly became jealous. "Oh, I'll stick with my master." Yanxiangluo was speechless. Should these two people be jealous like this? But she still quickly coaxed people. "Ancestor, master, what do you think of my little apprentice? Hurry up and draw the two people's attention away from yourself." Mu Qiangling and Deng Changs knew that she was diverting attention, but they still looked at Chi Hao cooperatively. At this time, Chi Hao had already been promoted. "I've advanced to level 3, and my talent is pretty good." Although Mu Qiangling's tone was light, his eyes sparkled. This young disciple is really talented. Ever since he completed this trial step, all the disciples in the Xuanhuan sect have passed through it, but only a handful of them have been able to advance to the 3rd level. In more than 3,000 years, there have only been no more than 10 people. Yan Xianglou knew in her heart that Qi Hao's talent was definitely the best in the Xuanhuan sect to be evaluated like this by Mu Changling. Ancestor, Xiao Hao only awakened his spiritual roots for some reasons, and he has only been practicing for a few months, Yan Xianglou explained. When Yan Xianglou said this, the light in Mu Changling's eyes grew brighter. This kid still has a great opportunity. Xiao Hao, come here to pay homage to your ancestors and your master, Yan Xianglou shouted to Qi Hao, who was still in a state of surprise. Only then did Qi Hao see two people standing next to his master. One looked very young, and the other had white hair and a white beard and looked like he was immortal. It was so obvious that he could tell at a glance who was the ancestor and who was the master. He immediately walked over, knelt down, and kowtowed to Mu Changling respectfully. Qi Hao pays homage to the ancestor. Mu Changling stroked his beard with satisfaction. Xiao Luo'er had good taste, and Qi Hao was a kid with good talent and a good heart. Raised his hand to lift him up with his spiritual power, and then threw him a gift ring. This is a meeting gift. Qi Hao was surprised by the gift ring in his hand. They were all wearing gift rings as gifts. How rich his ancestors were, but since their ancestors were so rich, why was the Xuanhuan sect so shabby? Why are the steps up the mountain so narrow? Although I was confused, I still thanked Mu Changling respectfully. Then he knelt down to Deng Chang's and said, Qi Hao pays homage to the master. Deng Chang's also gave a meeting gift. Although it was not a gift ring, it still surprised Qi Hao. The master was actually so rich. Deng Chang's gave him a kinkan bag, which was full of high-grade spiritual stones, which was quite affordable. Whether it is for cultivation or as money, there is nothing more economical than giving spiritual stones. If Yan Xianglou knew that it was filled with spiritual consciousness, she would definitely think that her master was perfunctory in his treatment of his disciple. I think there are many kinds of meeting gifts that master gave her. She hasn't counted from elixir to her life-saving baby. She hasn't used it so far. It's not that Deng Chang's is being picky, but that he treats his apprentice like a daughter. He has given her all the treasures she can use. In addition, before coming to the higher continent, apart from leaving behind spiritual stones and his own weapons, he only left pills. He already had medicine and poisonous elixirs. His disciple should not be short of these things, so that when he came to meet him, he could only give him spiritual stones as a gift. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 483. Mu Changling glanced at the disciple who was secretly watching them in the dark, and said to the two of them, Go back first, and let's talk slowly. Master and apprentice Yan Xianglou and Qi Hao nodded in unison. They looked more like sisters than master and apprentice. The two of them followed Mu Changling and Deng Chang's and walked to Xuanhuan sect together. The further they walked, the more doubtful Ruan Xianglou became. Although she had imagined that Xuanhuan sect was as small as possible, she never expected it to be so simple. She secretly glanced at the master and saw him looking at her. She gave him a look, and Deng Chang's motioned for her to go in before talking. Yan Xianglou could only walk to Xuanhuan sect with full of questions. It's not surprising that she was confused, except that the mountain gate looked like that. It was made of stone and looked like a sect. The further you go inside, the shabbier it gets. The roads are dirt roads and the houses are bamboo buildings made of bamboo. Although they are very strong, it does not change the fact that Xuanhuan sect is very shabby. Looking at the generous greeting gift given to Qi Hao by the ancestors, why is the sect so shabby? No wonder more than 3,000 years have passed, and the Xuanhuan sect is still unknown on the mainland. It would be strange for such a sect to have disciples. No, there are quite a few people who can sense the darkness, and the sect seems to have no shortage of disciples. After walking for a while, there were more bamboo buildings, but they were not all together, just like independent existences. Walking further inside, you can see many disciples wearing religious uniforms on the road. Everyone respectfully greeted Mu Changling and Deng Chang's. Seeing Mu Changling's surprised and admiring eyes, it was difficult for Yuan Xianglou to ignore them. There are indeed many disciples. How does Xianhuan sect recruit disciples like this? Why is there so many disciples, but Xianhuan sect is not famous at all on the mainland, and no one even knows that such a sect exists? After going around a mountain col, I saw a courtyard made of bamboo. The courtyard was not small, and the bamboo buildings inside were all two-story. However, the courtyard gate and fence were too perfunctory, with a few sparse bamboo branches on the door. A person with a figure like her can easily get in, and the fence is also sparse. The door and fence are just the same, and I don't know what to do with them. Tell anyone who sees me that I am a fence. Mu Changling raised his hand, and a burst of spiritual power opened the bamboo door, and 4 people walked in. A disciple came out, bowed respectfully and immediately went to make tea. There was no smell of other people in the courtyard. It seemed that this disciple was just serving his ancestor Mu Changling. This place is quite clean. Xiao Luo your master lives in the bamboo building on the left. Yuan Xiaohao should live in the bamboo building on the right. Ming Li has cleaned everything, Mu Changling said. Yu Xiangluo and Qi Hao said in unison, yes, ancestor. Mu Changling said to the 2 of them, don't be formal. I don't have many rules here. You can just be casual. Yu Xiangluo could see that although the ancestors here did not have so many rules, the disciples of the sect followed many rules along the way. Even the disciple who served the ancestors had good rules. Ming Li should be his name. Yuan Xiangluo was okay, but Qi Hao was really a little cautious and didn't know what to do. Yan Xiangluo whispered, just don't forget the rules. There's no need to be so formal. Qi Hao relaxed a little after listening to his master's words. Mu Changling clearly saw the interaction between the master and the disciple, and he agreed with the way Yan Xiangluo taught his disciples. It was right not to be accustomed to mistakes. This is the time for the development of a child's character at such an old age. If you are too spoiled, your temperament will not be good. Sit down. Mu Changling sat down at the bamboo table in the yard, pointed to the bamboo chair opposite and said to Ruan Xiangluo. Yan Xiangluo saw her master sitting down beside her ancestor, so she sat down opposite her ancestor. Qi Hao did not sit down, but stood beside Yuan Xiangluo. Mu Changling was a little more satisfied when he saw this, and said to Ming Li when he brought him tea, Ming Li, this is your uncle and his apprentice Qi Hao. Ming Li immediately gave concubine Xiangluo a gift. Yan Xiangluo didn't expect that her seniority here would be so high. Ming Li seemed to be older than her. However, she was also a senior member of the Immortal Cloud sect in Tianma continent, so she had already adapted to it. Mu Changling said again, Ming Li, take Xiaohao for a walk around the sect and let him get to know the section. This is to drive Qi Hao away. Qi Hao looked at Yan Xiangluo, who nodded and said, go, learn about the sect, come back and talk to the master. Qi Hao immediately followed Ming Li and left obediently. The 2 of them walked out of the bamboo gate. Only then did Yan Xiangluo notice a slight fluctuation in the barrier. It turned out that there was a barrier around the courtyard, and only the bamboo door could allow people to enter and exit. Mu Changling took a sip of tea and said, Xiao Luo must be wondering why our ancestors made the Xianyuan sect so shabby, right? Yang Xiangluoshi nodded sincerely, there is a huge gap compared with the Xianyuan sect in Tianma continent. Mu Changling stroked his beard and said with a smile, Xiao Luo, do you know why I didn't build the Xianyuan sect here like I built the Xianyuan sect on the Tianzhan continent? Yan Xiang shook her head sincerely. If she didn't have enough financial resources, she wouldn't believe it. After all, the meeting gifts given by her ancestors to Qihao were all in gift rings. Besides, the ancestor is an alchemist or a weapon refiner. If anyone asks for money, the ancestor will not take the money away. When Xiaohao comes back and talks to you about the Xianyuan sect, you will know the reason Mu Changling did not directly answer Yan Xiongluo's doubts, but gave it away. Yan Xiongluo's pretty brows furrowed, then nodded and said, "Okay. I heard that your master said that the alchemy furnace I dug out under Xianyuan Peak when the Xianyuan sect was founded was contracted by you," Mu Changling asked again. Yan Xiongluo nodded. This was something that the entire Xianyuan sect knew, and she was not surprised if the master told the ancestors. "Can you show it to your ancestors?" Mu Changling asked again. As soon as Yan Xiongluo thought about it, the stone nest appeared in her hand, because she often used it to make elixirs, and now the stone nest smelled of herbs when it came out. Mu Changling looked at the alchemy furnace that could no longer see its original appearance. At this time, the alchemy furnace was as clear as jasper. It was completely different from when he chopped it out with his sword, except for its size. He did not take it over to look at it, but said with emotion, "At that time, I chose Xianyuan Peak as the main peak. I chopped it down with my sword. I wanted to chop out a flat place to build a pavilion, but I didn't want to chop out a pill furnace. Although I looked at it, it's inconspicuous, but I sensed that it had spiritual consciousness. I wanted to make a contract with it, but I couldn't, so I knew it was not an ordinary spiritual object. It should be a spiritual object that could choose its own owner, so I placed it in the section. All the direct disciples can try to make a contract, and whoever can make the contract belongs to him." The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 484. Chapter 484, Arriving at the Xianyuan sect, 7. But until I left the Tianqian continent, this alchemy furnace had no owner. Unexpectedly, it waited for more than 3,000 years before choosing you as its owner. Mu Changling kept observing Yan Xiongluo. After he said so much, her mood did not fluctuate much. This shows how stable her character is. In fact, Yan Xiongluo still had a lot of ups and downs in her heart, but her 2 lives had forced her to mature prematurely and she was used to hiding her thoughts. However, the big eyes still flashed rapidly. She knew the origin of Shiwo before the contract was made, but after Mu Changling told it again, she felt different. After all, Mu Changling was the idol she had always admired. Now that he was actually sitting in front of her, and he was so approachable, it felt different from the ancestor she had imagined. Deng Chang's narrowed his eyes. His little apprentice's luck seemed to be a bit too good. Each special spiritual creature chose to recognize her as their master. I'm afraid it's not just luck, right? Although he was not present at the scene when the long diamond spear was chosen, he saw it with his own eyes when Shiwo recognized his master. "Does it have a name?" Mu Changling suddenly asked. "Yes, it's called Shiwo." Yan Xiongluo didn't hide the name of Shiwo. Since it was a treasure, there was no need to hide it. As he spoke, he turned the alchemy furnace so that the side with the word Shiwo engraved on it faced Mu Changling. Mu Changling's expression changed drastically after seeing these 2 words. "It's actually it." Yan Xiongluo and Deng Chang's looked at each other, and the master and disciple immediately understood that the stone nest was probably not an ordinary alchemy furnace, otherwise it would not have changed the expression of the ancestor who had lived for more than 3,000 years. At this time, the long-lost tugging sound of the stone nest came to Yan Xiongluo's consciousness again. "Humph, I finally know what I'm doing. I haven't lived in vain for more than 3,000 years." Yan Xiongluo twitched the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, Shiwo could only communicate with his own consciousness. It would have been embarrassing for his ancestors to hear this. It would be embarrassing for her to be rejected by an alchemy furnace even though she is over 3,000 years old. Although Shiwo can communicate with her spiritual consciousness, it rarely communicates with her. Every time she uses Xiwo to make alchemy, it is just like an ordinary alchemy furnace. It will not interfere with any of Yan Xiangluo's decisions and actions, and it will be left to its own devices. Never communicated with her. Let Yan Xiangluo always forget the fact that it can communicate with herself. Yan Xiangluo felt extremely embarrassed, but she tried her best to keep her expression unchanged so that Mu Changling didn't notice anything. Deng Changs asked, "Ancestor, does this alchemy furnace have any extraordinary origins?" Mu Changling nodded, looked at Yan Xiangluo and said, "It has an extraordinary origin. Before you break through to the level, don't expose the existence of Xiwo to outsiders." Yu Xiangluo's gaze paused. She had always used a stone nest to make alchemy, and she didn't avoid anyone. Seeing her expression, Mu Changling knew that she had been exposed. "Has anyone seen that you have made elixirs?" Yan Xiangluo thought for a while and said, "We are all our own people, no matter whether she was in the Xianhuan sect of the Tianqian continent or came to the higher continent, the people who could watch her refining alchemy in front of her were all her own people. Apart from the people from the Xianhuan sect who were looking at his contract at the stone nest, there is really one person there who is prone to leaking information about himself, and that is Miao Nagano." She knew that Miao Chang'ai had come to the higher continent and was under Lu Yu's hands, but she didn't want to worry her master and ancestors, so she didn't say anything. Deng Changs thought that everyone in the Xianhuan sect of Tianqian continent knew that Xiao Luo'er had contracted Shiwo, but fortunately there were no rumors and no one came to the higher continent, so the news could still be concealed for the time being. He had no idea that one of the people who watched Yan Xiang fall into the contracted stone nest actually came to the higher continent, that is Miao Chang'ai, who was expelled from the sect of Xianhuan sect. "That's good, don't use Shiwo in front of outsiders in the future." Mu Changling breathed a sigh of relief. Yan Xiangluo nodded. This was not difficult. After all, she never made elixirs in front of outsiders. Those who could watch her make elixirs were people she trusted. But just after she nodded, the color of Shiwo in her hand slowly changed. Although it was still blue, it was not so translucent. The patterns on it also disappeared, and the word Shiwo also disappeared, and even spirituality, they are all hidden, and they look no different from ordinary alchemy furnaces. The three of them were stunned. This alchemy furnace was indeed not a mortal thing. It could actually hide the patterns, words, and aura on its body. After the three of them were stunned for a while, "You looked at me and I looked at you." It was Yan Xiangluo who spoke first. "Ancestor, I'd better tell you about the origin of Shiwo, so that I can be prepared. No matter what, since Shiwo is in her hands, it will be exposed sooner or later. She must know the origin of Shiwo so that she can better deal with the coming trouble." Mu Changling took a look at Yu Xiangluo. Since ancient times, anyone who can be automatically recognized by such a spiritual creature is not an ordinary person. This little girl's future achievements should be not low, at least better than herself. Mu Changling knew very well what kind of existence there was in the higher continents who were stronger than him. The depression in his heart was relieved at this moment, and his whole aura changed. Yu Xiangluo and Deng Changs both clearly sensed the changes in their ancestors. Although they didn't know the cause, they could sense that it was a good thing. This stone nest is well known to almost everyone among high-level mainland alchemists, and it is also an existence that all alchemists and poison masters cannot hope for. Mu Changling told the two of them the origin of the stone nest. Yu Xiangluo and Deng Changs also learned some information about Shiwo from Mu Changling's words. There is a legend in the higher continent. There once was a god-level alchemist, a woman. When she was less than 20 years old, she could refine god-level pills and be promoted to a god-level alchemist. This stone nest is her alchemy furnace. No one knows how she got this alchemy furnace. Everyone admired her at first, but I don't know when it started spreading that the reason why she was able to refine god-level elixirs was because she owned an artifact alchemy furnace, the one she often used called Shiwo. This news, as soon as the news came out, It was treated as a rumor at first, but then it became more and more true for some reason. Alchemists and poison masters of both human and demon began to covet the alchemy furnace in her hand. Especially some people who are talented in alchemy and poison refining think that as long as they get the alchemy furnace of Xuanhuan, they can also become god-level alchemy and poison refining masters. Hence, people from both human and demonic realms began to look for this god-level alchemist who was less than 20 years old. But then everyone discovered that there was too little information about this god-level alchemist. They only knew that she was a woman under 20 years old, because every time she came out, she did not use her true identity, and she had never used real name. Can't find out who this person is for a while. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 485. At that time, families with a girl under 20 years old who was talented in alchemy did not dare to let their children go out for fear of being implicated. This incident lasted for a long time, but what surprised people was that this god-level alchemist never appeared again. Rumors began to spread throughout the continent, saying that she was probably captured by a demonic alchemist who took away the alchemy furnace and was killed. Some also said that she was hiding and did not dare to show her face. As time goes by, there are more and more rumors, and the world no longer knows which one to believe. Until now, thousands of years have passed, and legends about her are still circulating. Although it is not known whether she is still alive, the alchemists and poison masters on the higher continent are still interested in her alchemy furnace stone nest. When beginners choose an alchemy furnace, their masters will tell them stories about the stone nest with emotion, telling them that whoever can get the legendary alchemy furnace stone nest will be a person of great fortune. They will then tell them that they can only think about it, owning a stone nest is simply out of reach. Xianxia felt a little strange after listening to Mu Changling's explanation. Mu Changling said with emotion after telling the story, "I just arrived in the higher continent before. When I heard the news, I was very emotional. I also hope to have the opportunity to see what kind of artifact Xuanhuan is. I didn't expect that I would know about Xuanhuan today." The nest came to light again in my hands and was contracted by my air, which also shows that its former owner has died, which is a pity. Mu Changling wondered if Xuanhuan chose Xianxia as its owner because she was so similar to its former owner. She also had a strong talent for alchemy and was a high-level alchemist when she was a teenager. Now that Xianxia is only 16 years old, who can guarantee that she will not become a god-level alchemist before she is 20? The more he thought about it, the more likely it was that he felt it was possible. Xianxia had a very strange feeling in her heart. She used her spiritual consciousness to communicate with Xuanhuan. "Xuanhuan, has your original master died?" After asking this question, Xianxia felt that she was a bit idiotic. The owner of Xuanhuan had not died, so it was not her turn to contract Xuanhuan. She didn't hear Xuanhuan's voice for a while. Xianxia thought that Xuanhuan didn't want to answer her question. Just when she was about to give up, Xuanhuan's voice suddenly came. Although there was only one word, Xianxia could sense that Xuanhuan was in a bad mood. She knew without asking that Xuanhuan must have missed its former owner. "Is your master really murdered by those greedy people?" Xianxia asked again. Xuanhuan snorted coldly, "She is so powerful, how could she be murdered by those stupid people?" "Then how did she die?" Xianxia asked again when Xuanhuan was willing to tell her. "For the sake of the great righteousness she talks about," Xuanhuan said dully. Xianxia was surprised by this answer. Such a young woman actually sacrificed herself for the sake of justice. No matter how she thought about it, she could not imagine what kind of things could make her give up her life for it. Xuanhuan muttered, "She sacrificed herself for justice, but who remembers her?" What else did Xianxia want to ask Xuanhuan, but Xuanhuan seemed to know that she still wanted to ask, and before she could ask, he said, "I can't tell you anything else. You want to know how to restore your previous memories as soon as possible, you know better than me. When the words fell, Xiwo was speechless. Yan Xianglue was speechless. Why did she feel that Xiwo was so angry with her? Could it be that you made it sad just because you asked about its original owner? Originally, she wanted to ask Xiwo if it was a divine weapon, but Xiwo clearly didn't want to talk to her anymore, so it was in vain to ask. Forget it, it doesn't matter what the previous owner of the stone nest was. Now that you have the stone nest, you should cherish it and do as your ancestors said. Just don't expose the stone nest in front of others until your cultivation reaches the level. Besides, Xiwo has not been hidden by itself. Even if Xiwo is taken out in its current appearance, no one will recognize it as Xiwo. Even if she is exposed, she can still be bullied. However, because of what Xiwo said, she became more and more anxious to restore her memory of her previous life. It seemed that many things required her to restore her memory before she could know what was going on and decide what to do. She only communicated with Xiwo for a moment. Neither Mu Changling nor Deng Changs knew. Mu Changling said to Ruan Xiangluo, I heard from your master that you are not usually such a high-profile person. How did you suddenly make your medical skills famous throughout the continent? For her age, it is not a good thing to become famous like this now. Mu Changling saw that Yan Xiang was lagging behind. Although he only talked for a while, he was still very confident in his own vision of people. This girl is not a person who seeks fame and fortune, so there must be a reason for her to do this. Yan Xiangluo said truthfully, my parents have come to the higher continent a long time ago. I couldn't find them, so I wanted to use this method to make them come to me. Although my parents haven't come to me yet, Master found me. It shows that my method is still feasible. My parents didn't come to see me, maybe they encountered something and couldn't escape, or the place where they lived was too inaccessible, and they didn't even know about my arrival. Mu Changling then remembered that Deng Changs had mentioned to him about her parents. This girl's bloodline was not very good. Her parents had both come to the higher continent. No wonder she came to the higher continent at such a young age. She was by far the youngest person he knew from the lower continents. Deng Changs frowned, I've been here for so long, but I haven't heard any news about your parents. Are you sure your parents have come to the higher continent? Deng Changs actually wanted to ask if those people were lying to her. Yan Xiangluo nodded, I'm sure my parents have come to the higher continent. Yan Xiangluo did not say that her parents had changed their names. Her inherent caution allowed her to always leave room for critical moments. Then what do you want to do? Deng Changs was also worried. Since the young apprentice's parents have come to the higher continent, the young apprentice must find them. But the higher continent is too big and they are too small. It is not easy to find two unknown people in the higher continent based on their strength. If the young apprentice hadn't become famous for his medical skills, he wouldn't have known she was here. Ruan Xiangluo said, you should practice, and do what you should do. If you have the opportunity to get information about them, go to them again. If there is no news about them, my news will be made public in the mainland. Once they know about me, when they will come to me, and with my dad's intelligence, they will be fine. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 486. Chapter 486 Ancestors Support. Yan Xiangluo is quite sure of this. At least for now, she doesn't know anything about her parents. They have carefully hidden their identities. There must be something forcing them to do this. She will not reveal any information about her parents until she knows exactly what happened. This is also her protection for her parents. Xiao Luo'er is still planning to go back to Xianyang City, Deng Changs asked. Let go of problems that cannot be solved first. This is also Deng Chang's way of dealing with things. After all, even if you force yourself to death, you can't do what you can't do. Besides, Xiao Luo'er is so confident about her parents, why should she be worried? Is there anyone who knows her parents better than Xiao Luo'er? Yu Chenji's reputation in the Tianqian continent is not average, and everyone's evaluation of him is unclear. Yu Chenji is very persistent in finding a wife, but no one can really figure out his thoughts on other things. Even when he faced the families in Wanghai Forest, he never flinched. Now that he has come to the higher continent, where the world is wider, he is like a fish in water. How could he be manipulated? So Xiao Luo'er is right not to worry. After hearing the master's question, Yan Xiangluo nodded, I'm going to watch the continental competition, and then return to Xiangyang City. Her ultimate goal is to go to Zhikongtian. Xiangyang City is very close to Yunzhang Palace, and Yunqian Palace is the only way to Zhikongtian. It is very convenient to live in Xiangyang City. Even if they don't go back to Xiangyang City for the time being, the Ji family's land that Jiju wants to go to is also in the southern continent, and they still have to go back to the southern continent. But she didn't tell her master or ancestors about Jiju's Hong. It was a secret between her and Jiju's Hong. The fewer people who knew about it, the better. She didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble and danger to Jiju's Hong. After saying this, she was worried that her ancestor Mu Changling had misunderstood that she did not want to stay in the Xianyuan sect, so she quickly explained, the Xianyuan sect has always kept a low profile in the world, but I am too high profile now and am not suitable to stay in the section doors bring trouble. These words are also her true words. The ancestor has been living and cultivating here in a low-key manner for more than 3,000 years. There must be a reason for him to do so. If her current reputation were to let people know that she was in the Immortal Cloud sect, I am afraid that the Immortal Cloud sect would never have such a peaceful life in the future. Yan Xiangluo's mind suddenly flashed, could it be that the ancestors made the sect like this just for this peaceful cultivation environment? How broad was the ancestors' state of mind? Mu Changling nodded when he heard this, cultivation is the same everywhere. You don't have to worry about how it will implicate the section. I have kept the sect hidden from the world for thousands of years. I naturally have my own way. You just have to do it. Just do what you want to do. If you have trouble, come back to your ancestors. With me here, you can be bullied. Although our sect is not visible to the world, it does not mean that the sect is weak and the sect is number one. The sect rule is to work together to protect the sect, whether you are in the sect or not. The second is that the sect disciples must help each other. If one party is in trouble, all parties will support you. The prerequisite is that you have not done anything evil that is not allowed by heaven. Yan Xiangluo smiled, her bright smile as bright as a flower, with my ancestors and sect supporting me, who should I be afraid of? In my heart, I admire my ancestor very much. He is indeed the founding ancestor of the Xianyuan section. His magnanimity is not comparable to that of ordinary people, especially in the indifferent high continent. Such a sect can be said to be unique, unprecedented, and unprecedented. Deng Chang's joked, now that your ancestors are supporting you, will this master be able to save your worries? Yan Xiangluo knew that the master was making fun of her, and was also reminding him not to be arrogant due to favors. Although his ancestors had a very high level of cultivation and had lived in the higher continent for more than 3,000 years, they still had some skills, but the higher continent still lacked the most skills. Even if he is a strong person, his ancestor is not the strongest person in the continent. Even if he is, his two fists are still difficult to beat with four hands. Even if you have the support of the sect, you still have to do what you can. It's not easy for master to save his worries. If he doesn't accept a disciple, master will still have to worry about it, Yuan Xiangluo said playfully. Why are you willing to keep your little apprentice? Deng Chang's raised his eyebrows. Yan Xiangluo shook her head, it's not possible now. I will send Xiao Hao to the master after a while, and let the master take care of the disciple. What are you going to do? Deng Chang's immediately understood his apprentice's plan. If it weren't for the fact that what she was going to do was very dangerous, she would not have handed over the new apprentice into her own hands. Yan Xiongluo smiled and said, I can't tell the master yet. If you want to be strong, you must go through life and death. There are many secret realms for training in the higher continents. After watching the Continental Hegemony competition, my disciple is going to find a suitable secret realm to practice one time. Actually, Yan Xiongluo didn't tell the truth. She wanted to accompany Ji Zhizhong to the Ji family's land. The Ji family land has been abandoned for thousands of years. So many people have tried to go in and search for the Ji family's Xuanhuan Kung Fu but have failed to achieve their goals. They can't even get in. This shows how dangerous it is inside. Although Ji Zhizhong has the blood of the Ji family, they are still not sure whether Ji Zhizhong's Ji family blood is the blood of the Ji family in the southern continent. She does not want him to face the danger alone. But this matter cannot be told to other people. If it is leaked, those who have framed the Ji family will never allow the Ji family bloodline to be passed on and become stronger. In this way, the dangers Jiju will face will be more, bigger, and stronger. Deng Chang's nodded and said, okay, master has no plans to leave for the time being. You can send Xiao Hao here anytime you want. Yan Xiongluo smiled and said coquettishly, master is the best. Mu Changling coughed lightly and pretended to be angry and said, why is the ancestor so bad? Yu Xiongluo was speechless. Why should you, an old man who has lived for more than 3,000 years, be jealous? How sour? She fanned her slender and white hands in front of her nose. Why does it smell so vinegary? Girl, you're already a master, why are you so naughty? Mu Changling laughed. Even if I become a master, I am still a child in front of my ancestors. That's true. Mu Changling hasn't gotten along with his junior like this naturally for a long time. He is still the person he has been looking forward to for a long time. Today he is in a very good mood. The three of them chatted and laughed while drinking tea. Yan Xiongluo asked her master Deng Chang's about his experience in coming to the mainland. More than half an hour later, Qi Hao and Ming Li came back. Yan Xiongluo waved to him, Xiao Hao is back and will tell the master about the Xuanhuan section. Qi Hao knew that the master was testing what he gained from his trip. He first bowed to Mu Changling and Deng Chang's in a polite manner, and then told Yuan Xiongluo what he saw and heard. Although Qi Hao is young, he is smart and speaks in a very organized manner. He synthesized what he saw with what Ming Li told him and briefly told it to Yuan Xiongluo. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 487. Chapter 487 Finally understood. Not only Mu Changling and Deng Chang's were surprised that Qi Hao had such strong verbal expression ability at such a young age, but even Ming Li was also surprised. Just now he took Qi Hao around the section. In fact, he took the initiative to introduce Qi Hao very little. It was not that he was hiding something, but that he asked Qi Hao before he could take the initiative to introduce him. The key is that every question can still bring up some ideas. At this time, listening to Qi Hao's complete description of his impression of Xuanhuan sect, he had a new understanding of this child's intelligence. This is simply genius. After listening to Qi Hao's story, Yan Xiongluo finally understood why her ancestors had built the sect so crudely. The ancestor was a man of great wisdom. He built the sect so crudely. One reason was to tell his disciples that they came to the sect not to enjoy the blessings of the sect, let alone enjoy it, but to learn skills. The second ancestor spent all his financial resources on training disciples. Because Qi Hao walked around and saw that every disciple had no shortage of cultivation resources. Although the places where sect disciples lived were simple bamboo buildings, there were spirit gathering arrays, retreat rooms, meditation rooms, and vitality platforms for cultivation everywhere. Waiting for a place to assist in cultivation. These places were built extremely luxuriously, using the best materials on the continent. In addition, when she went up the mountain before, Yanxiangluo saw a town 30 or 40 miles away. This distance was not too far. Why did no one discover the existence of Xianhuan sect? It should be that the ancestors had set up barriers under the entire mountain to hide them. People who come here will unconsciously avoid the barrier of sex. If they don't come to this mountain, they will naturally not find that there is a sect on the mountain. They could see them coming up the mountain because their ancestors knew they were coming and released the barrier against them. One more thing, from Qi Hao's words, Yanxiangluo knew that the disciples in the sect did not come by themselves, but were selected by people in the section. All the disciples were either from poor families or from lower class continents. The ancestors single-handedly created a holy land for cultivation for children who awakened their spiritual roots from ordinary families in higher continents who had no access to cultivation resources, and for monks from lower continents. What kind of state is it for a person with such a mind? Thinking about it again, these people will be more grateful to the sect for their help. Who would stand by and watch when the sect is in trouble? This is also the main reason why the Xianhuan sect can still be hidden from the world after being established for more than 3,000 years. The sect relies on everyone working together to protect it. All the disciples of such a sect want it to exist forever and give younger generations like them a chance to practice and a chance to grow up. Entering a sect is equivalent to entering a protective circle. With so many sect members protecting you, as long as your talent is not too bad, you can grow up. Yanxiangluo suddenly remembered that Shiwo said that its former owner sacrificed his life for justice. At this time, she suddenly realized that her realm was too narrow. Although there are reasons for her life experience, it is mainly related to the fact that she has never been in contact with such a broad-minded person. How can she take the path of becoming a strong person in such a state? At this moment, her state of mind changed drastically. Although it was not comparable to the state of mind of her ancestor Mu Changling, it had also expanded to a level she had never imagined. At this moment, she suddenly realized that it was a good thing to put Qi Hao next to her ancestor and master, as his mind would be broadened by the influence of his ears and eyes. This is probably why master is willing to stay with his ancestors. When he looked at Mu Changling again, his eyes suddenly gained something more, which was the admiration born from the bottom of his heart. Mu Changling smiled, knowing that she understood why she had made the sect so crudely built. Although the house is simple, the heart is not simple. What do Xiaohao think of the Xianhuan sect? Yanxiangluo asked, concentrating on her thoughts. Qi Hao apologized with bright eyes, it's a good place to practice. Such a place where one can practice without any distractions is indeed a good place for him to practice, and the disciples of the sect he saw were getting along harmoniously with each other. Such an atmosphere would not be found in any family. Mu Changling stroked his beard and smiled. He was a good boy. From these superficial things, he could see the true purpose of the sect. Yanxiangluo asked again, would Xiao Hao be willing to stay here to practice? Qi Hao was stunned and glanced at Mu Changling and Deng Chang's. He would be unhappy if he said he didn't want to keep his ancestor and master, but no matter how good and suitable the Xianhuan sect was for cultivation, he still wanted to stay with his master. He rolled his eyes and said, if he hadn't met the master, Xiao Hao would have been willing to stay in Xianhuan sect to practice, but the situation is different now. The master has no way of repaying Xiao Hao's kindness. I only hope that he can stay with the master for the rest of his life. Filial piety, think of nothing else. Mu Changling's beard trembled. He was a treacherous boy. If he didn't want to stay, he just said that he didn't want to stay. He gave such a high-level reason for not wanting to stay. However, he had to admit that Qi Hao was indeed extremely smart, and he was so smart that he was not annoying. Yanxiangluo smiled and rubbed Qi Hao's head. Being filial to your master doesn't necessarily mean you have to guard your master every day. If you miss your ancestors and your master, you can come and live in the Xuanhuan sect for a while. Although Chi Hao felt that in his heart he also likes his ancestors and masters very much, but he likes his master more, but he is smart enough not to object because he knows that his master is leaving room for him. If he wants to come, he can come at any time. He nodded obediently and said, Xiao Hao will come to see our ancestors and master. Yu Xiongluo didn't say anything more, as long as Chi Hao didn't reject his ancestor and master. Children always like to feel safe around familiar and trusted people. He just arrived today. After staying here for a while, he became familiar with his ancestors and master. With his master and ancestors liking him, he will soon gain Chi Hao's favor. After sending him to live for a while, he will not reject it. It was getting late. Although Mu Changling usually did not eat whole grains, Mu Changling heard from Deng Changs that his young apprentice's cooking skills were so good that if the monks ate the food, they would not leave any impurities in their bodies. So Mu Changling, who couldn't remember the last time she had a meal, asked Mingli to prepare a lot of spiritual ingredients, ready to test whether Yan Xiongluo's cooking skills were as good as her master said. Yu Xiongluo was not modest and excused herself. She did not do it for any other reason than because her ancestors were kind to her and she should be filial to her ancestors. She just looked at the yard. There was no kitchen. How could she cook? Although there is a kitchen in the space, she cannot go in to cook, let alone take out the kitchen to use. Ancestor, my sect has a dining hall. I'll go to the dining hall and prepare the food and bring it back, Yuan Xiongluo said. Mu Changling said, don't bother me, I prepared a kitchen for you. As soon as she finished speaking, an exquisite and spacious house appeared in the yard. It was placed under the bamboo building where Yan Xiongluo and Chi Hao lived. It was convenient for her to cook. Yan Xiongluo was stunned for a moment and was speechless. The ancestor of emotion had already made a plan. It seemed that it was refined in advance, and it could not be refined in a short while. The relationship has been prepared for a long time. When I walked in, I saw that there were all kinds of pots, stoves and kitchen utensils inside, except for her, the chef, who wielded a knife and a shovel. Well, if she doesn't put her cooking skills to the best use, she will be a bit sorry for the kitchen that her ancestors took so much trouble to refine. She slapped her forehead. There was also a kitchen in her own space that Ji Zhozhong was refining for her. Why did both of them like to refine the kitchen for her? Master, let me light a fire for you, Chi Hao ran over. Originally, there was no need for others, but thinking that lighting a fire can also practice controlling the fire, Yu Xiongluo nodded in agreement. Don't you know that Chi Hao wanted to learn cooking skills from his master, and a generation of spiritual chefs slowly emerged at this time. Who made Yan Xiongluo's cooking skills so good? He couldn't eat enough of the food she cooked. Chi Hao felt that if he learned his master's cooking skills, he could also cook for his master in the future. This was also a form of filial piety. Way. So the master and the apprentice got busy in the kitchen. Mingli stood at the door of the kitchen, wanting to help, but he couldn't help at all. Mu Changling and Deng Changs were sitting in the yard drinking tea, but their eyes were always staring at the door of the kitchen. Especially Deng Changs, who felt that he hadn't eaten the food cooked by his apprentice for a long time. The look in his eyes made Mu Changling look forward to it. He had been with Deng Changs for several months, and it was clear that he was not a voracious person. It was understandable that such a person could show such an expectant look. How good your cooking skills are. Mu Changling thought carefully, when was the last time he had a meal? It must have been more than 3,000 years ago, I really can't remember the specific time. After a while, the aroma of the food wafted out, and Mu Changling's eyes suddenly changed. This girl is really impressive. This cooking skill is indeed extraordinary. It can actually make him, who has not eaten for more than 3,000 years, become greedy. Even the famous chefs in mainland China cannot make such delicious food. Fortunately, Yan Xianglou worked quickly and didn't cook anything too time-consuming. In less than half an hour, 8 dishes and 1 soup were served on the table. Ming Li stood aside and looked at the food on the table greedily. It had been a long time since he had eaten such formal food. In the past, I didn't dare to eat, and I didn't want to eat. I was worried that eating food would cause some impurities in the body and affect my cultivation talent. He just couldn't bear it today. The food was too delicious. But because of his status, he was not qualified to sit and eat with his ancestors, and he felt a little regretful. It was too cruel for him to miss this delicious food like this. Yan Xianglou would not break the rules of her ancestors here. She pointed to the kitchen and said, "Ming Li, there is food left for you in the kitchen." Ming Li was so moved that he almost cried, "Thank you so much, Uncle Yu." As soon as he finished speaking, he used his spiritual energy and rushed to the kitchen. This speed made Chi Hao open his mouth wide and didn't close it for a long time. After entering the kitchen, Ming Li saw 2 plates of vegetables, a bowl of rice and a bowl of soup left on the kitchen table. 2 plates of food were shared, and Yan Xianglou left some of each of the 8 dishes for him. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 488. Ming Li was stunned. Although Yuan Xianglou said that he had left food for him, he really didn't expect that Yuan Xianglou had left everything for him. This kind of care cannot be described as careful. After all, he is just a disciple who serves his ancestors. Master Yu actually doesn't look down on him at all. A simple thing can show her attitude towards people and her style of dealing with things. Ming Li ate this meal with tears in his eyes, partly because he was moved, and partly because he was overwhelmed by the delicious food. Mu Changling sighed secretly at what Yan Xianglou did. Deng Chang's had a good vision. No wonder he said that he would only accept 1 disciple in this life. It is enough to have 1 such disciple. At this time, Mu Changling was no longer in the mood to pay attention to Ming Li. His 5 senses were already attracted by the 8 dishes and 1 soup on the table. Deng Chang's couldn't wait any longer, so he served Mu Changling a bowl of rice and a bowl of soup. "Ancestor, let's have a taste." Mu Changling immediately picked up his chopsticks and took a bite of his favorite dish. The taste immediately made him want to stop talking. He just gestured with his chopsticks to signal them to eat, and then started eating himself. It was the first time Chi Hao saw such an old man eating so fast. Seeing that the master was also eating very deliciously, he felt that if he didn't eat quickly, he would not be able to eat anything. Therefore, no one at the table of 4 spoke, they were all engrossed in eating. Yan Xianglou is better off. After all, she has good cooking skills and often eats by herself. Even if she is a foodie, she will not compete with the 3 of them for food. She took a few bites and then put down her chopsticks. She had thought that there were not enough dishes to eat, so she deliberately made more, including 8 dishes, 1 soup, and a large bowl of spiritual rice. She didn't even take a few bites. After a quarter of an hour, all the bowls, plates, and basins on the dinner table were filled with food. Empty. Chi Hao secretly rubbed his bulging belly. What should he do if he is full? Yan Xianglou was speechless. She took out the Xiaoxi pill and fed 1 into Chi Hao's mouth. Take 1 Xiaoxi pill, otherwise you will feel uncomfortable for a long time. Chi Hao obediently took the Xiaoxi pill because the feeling of being full was really not that uncomfortable. Mu Changling and Deng Chang's both looked at the Xiaoxi pill in her hand. They did not have such a low-level Xiaoxi pill that had no effect in their eyes. Yan Xianglou's gaze paused and the corner of her mouth twitched. Ancestor and master also want it. The 2 men nodded immediately. Yan Xianglou was speechless and gave each of them a Xiaoxi dan. She secretly decided not to cook too much in the future, otherwise they would all eat like this, which would affect their image and health too much. At this time, Ming Li also came out of the kitchen, holding his stomach and feeling a little full. Fortunately, although the amount of food that Yan Xianglou left for him was large, it was not much, and he was not very full. They came out late and missed the scene of them taking the Xiaoxi pill. Mu Changling and Deng Changs naturally didn't want him to know that they had taken the Xiaoxi pill. It was too embarrassing. Qi Hao is just like a villain, so naturally he can't speak. Yan Xianglou picked up Qi Hao, put away the dishes, and after clearing the table, she made a pot of digestion tea for them to drink. After it was completely dark, they went back to their rooms to rest. Qi Hao and Yu Xiang lived in a bamboo house. They both lived on the second floor. There were actually 4 rooms on the second floor. The master and the apprentice chose the 2 rooms on the side, separated by 2 rooms, so no one would affect the other. Qi Hao was a child after all, and he fell asleep after a while. Yan Xianglou was not sleepy, so she glanced at the Copper Tower Palace. When she looked there, she happened to see Zhizhong leaving the 7th floor and going to the 8th floor. Yan Xianglou raised his eyebrows in surprise. How come the higher the level, the faster he got? The Bronze Tower Palace experience is from the 1st floor to the 9th floor. Zhizhong has already reached the 8th floor at this time, and is just short of the last floor. Although this is the 3rd time he has gone into practice, this posture is too scary. Yan Xianglou entered for the 2nd time and just reached the 4th level and couldn't hold on to advance. Zhizhong actually had no intention of coming out after reaching the 8th level. Could it be that he was going to finish his training this time? Or is his talent too high, and the Copper Tower Palace is not suitable for him to practice? Although the Copper Tower Palace is hers, she cannot go to the 9 levels of training at will. Only the 1st floor of the library and the 2nd floor of the weapons warehouse can be entered and exited at will. Now there are still the first 4 levels of experience that she can go to at will. In other words, the number of levels she has experienced is not limited to her. There are 9 floors in the training ground. Including the library and weapons depot, there should be a total of 11 floors. The Copper Tower does only have 9 floors. The library and weapons warehouse exist in parallel with the 9-floor training ground. In other words, the 3rd floor, the 1st floor has the 1st floor of the training ground and the library, and the 2nd floor has the 2nd floor of the training ground and the weapons library. However, others cannot enter the library and weapons library without her permission, and they cannot even discover the library and weapons library. The presence. Yan Xianglou had previously thought about letting Zhizhong people go into the weapons arsenal to choose weapons after they gained experience, but because she knew the news about the master, she decided to come to Xuanhuan sect and gave up on it. Besides, when she came out, Zhizhong's people had already come out and went to do things. Xian was the only one, so she was in no hurry to do it. Watching Zhizhong's experience for a while, Yan Xianglou once again sighed, the senior brother is so powerful, how can he refine such a powerful space magic weapon? Zhizhong is also a weapon refiner. He made the silver needles for her. I wonder if Zhizhong will be able to reach the level of her senior brother in the future. His talent for weapon refinement is also very high. By the way, the ancestor was also a weapon refiner, and the long caltrop spear was refined by the ancestor himself. Since the long rhombus spear can be refined, the ancestors of the weapons in her arsenal may not look down on it either. Although the ancestor's cultivation level was not mentioned today, from the confidence in his words, it was known that his cultivation level should be that of a truly strong person on the mainland, and he probably would not need her weapons here. Yan Xiangluo's eyes turned around in the weapons arsenal, then she looked away and started to practice. The place where Xuanhuan sect was built was not chosen at random, but the place chosen by ancestor Mu Changling after traveling all over the continent. Although it looks inconspicuous here, and although the mountains are connected into one piece, none of them are too high. However, the place where Xuanhuan sect built the sect is a treasure place where spiritual energy gathers. It has the function of naturally gathering spirits, and coupled with the spirit gathering array set up by Mu Changling, This place has become a treasure gathering place for spirits. The small spirit gathering formations practiced by the disciples of the Xuanhuan sect together form a large spirit gathering formation. Therefore, the spiritual energy in the Xuanhuan sect is several times richer than at the foot of the mountain. Yan Xiangluo had already sensed this. When she walked up the stairs with Qi Hao, the spiritual energy became stronger as she walked up the mountain. She knew that there must be a spirit gathering array on the mountain. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 489. Chapter 489, Go Somewhere. Yuan Xiangluo hasn't visited the sect yet. Although she heard Qi Hao talk about it, she hasn't seen it with her own eyes. Just now, Yan Xiangluo let go of her spiritual consciousness and realized that there were many spirit gathering arrays in Xuanhuan section. Looking down from the air, she discovered that these spirit gathering arrays merged into one large spirit gathering array, making the spiritual energy everywhere in the entire sect stronger. Keep it rich. In such an environment, she felt that sleeping was a waste of time and energy. Perhaps this is what Mu Changling wants to achieve, to have all his disciples have such a mentality and practice diligently on their own without urging or discipline. The more she got to know him, the more she felt that Mu Changling's wisdom was really extraordinary. This method of managing sect disciples was the first of its kind. It saved worry and effort and was very effective. After all, this is just like teaching students. The effect of students learning actively and passively is very different. Yan Xiangluo practiced this practice until the next morning. The early morning sunlight shines in through the window lattice, and the fresh smell of vegetation hits her face. Yan Xiangluo quits practicing, gets up and walks to the window, stretches and looks outside. Her room was on the side near the main building. There were windows on both sides of the room. The side she was standing on was the side. It is not possible to see the place where the sect disciples live here, but you can see the mountains behind the bamboo house where the ancestor Mu Changling lived, the lush trees, and the unknown wildflowers in bloom, which have a unique charm. It is easy to relax and unwind while staying here. I stretched my body and felt relaxed. I walked downstairs briskly. After washing myself, I went to the kitchen to make breakfast. Qi Hao needs to eat. It is estimated that during the days when she is in Xuanhuan sect, her ancestors and master also need to eat. However, since she was full last night, she planned to cook less food. 4 people and 4 dishes, just make more and bring out those for Ming Li in the morning, cook some porridge and make some exquisite snacks for the ancestors and master. After coming to the higher continent, she ate delicacies from many places. She also had some new delicacies, so she took this opportunity to practice them and let her ancestors and master taste various delicacies. Mu Changling and Deng Changs knew about her arrival, but they just saw her go to the kitchen and didn't come out. Ming Li didn't stay here at night. When he came over, he found that Yan Xiangluo had already prepared breakfast. I was thinking that I should come early tomorrow morning to help Master Jun. Yan Xiangluo saw Ming Li and smiled and said, I brought your breakfast. Don't forget to eat it later. Ming Li said thank you, but he was thinking in his heart that if he forgot anything, he would never forget to eat the food cooked by his uncle. In the past, it was only a disciple's duty to serve their ancestors, but now, coming to this courtyard has expectations. Ming Li just discovered that he is also a foodie. Actually, he misunderstood. It was not that he was a foodie, but that everyone who ate the food cooked by Yan Xiangluo would become a foodie. Qi Hao hasn't slept so soundly for a long time. After Yan Xiangluo finished cooking, she went upstairs to call him and he woke up. Qi Hao was a little embarrassed because of this, and said in a panic, Master, when Master gets up tomorrow morning, just call me up. Master has prepared the meal, but he is still sleeping. This apprentice is so heartless. Yesterday I said I should be filial to master, but today I just slept in. Yan Xianglou rubbed his head and said, "Kid, it's okay to sleep in occasionally, as long as you don't slack off in your cultivation." Chi Hao hurriedly said, "Master, don't worry, I won't slack off in my cultivation." "Well, let's go downstairs to freshen up and have breakfast." Yan Xianglou went downstairs first. Chi Hao quickly got up and folded the bedding, then ran downstairs, went to the well, fetched water and washed up, then obediently went to invite his ancestor Mu Changling and his master Deng Changs to dinner, and the three of them came to the table and sat down together. Mu Changling smiled and said, "You still need to have children to have the breath of life. Look, before there was Deng Changs, I didn't feel anything. Now that Xiao Luo'er and her apprentice Ji Hao are here, I feel that the small courtyard is not empty anymore, and it feels full of vitality." Yan Xianglou served Mu Changling some porridge and put it in front of him. "Ancestors, you can go to Xiangyang city for a walk when you have time. The atmosphere of life there is still very comfortable." Mu Changling nodded, "That's true. I have been to Xiangyang city. It is indeed the most comfortable city to live in the higher continent. If Xianhuan sect had not been built, I would have chosen to live there." Chi Hao stood up with a clear eye and served Deng Chang's porridge and placed it in front of him. He then served Yan Xianglou porridge and placed it in front of her. Finally, he served himself porridge and then sat down to eat breakfast quietly. He had a hunch that there would be no accidents during his stay in Xianhuan sect, and he would be able to eat meals cooked by his master every meal. It's simply so happy. "When is Xiao Luo'er going to Yaoguang city?" Mu Changling asked while eating. "Just arrived 2 or 3 days in advance." This was her original plan. "By the way, I need to send a message to Mu Xian later. This will save him from worrying because he forgot about it last night." "Ancestor, are there any disciples in the sect participating in the continental competition?" Yuan Xianglou asked. Mu Changling said, "Yes, but they are all registered as individuals, and they are all disciples who need combat experience. The implication is that some disciples who are not very high in cultivation participated. The other disciples are busy practicing and have no time to participate in the continental competition. After all, Xianhuan sect does not want to dominate." Yan Xianglou is not surprised. The Xianhuan sect is not well known in the mainland. Isn't it because the low-key can no longer be low-key? The reason why the disciples of the sect do not compete in the name of the sect is to protect the sect from being discovered and noticed. "What are the secret realms on the mainland, ancestors? Can you tell me about them?" Yan Xianglou asked. After Ji Zhozhong accepted the inheritance from the Ji family, she was really ready to find a secret realm to experience. After all, one can only gain experience by transcending one's own environment. She has not forgotten that her pangu flower blooming technique has yet to pass the last hurdle. "See for yourself, all the secret information on the mainland is recorded here." Mu Changling took out a booklet and handed it to her. Yu Xianglou took it over as a treasure and was going to read it after eating. After breakfast, "Come with me to a place." Mu Changling counted the time and thought it was still time to come, so he asked the girl to go to that place and see if she might have a fate with her. Yan Xianglou knew that the place where her ancestors would take her there must not be an ordinary place. Then he responded, "Okay." Then he put the booklet away and could only wait to read the experience again when he came back. Chi Hao blinked and wanted to ask if he could go, but that would be rude, so he refrained from asking. However, all three of them could see his expression clearly, and it was difficult to ignore this unabashed thought. Mu Changling smiled and said, "Your cultivation level is too low, you can't go to that place yet." After finishing the meal, Chi Hao could only watch his ancestor leave with his master. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 490. Deng Changs waved to Chi Hao, come here and tell me how far you have learned in alchemy. Chi Hao's attention was immediately sucked away, and he reported to Deng Chang's what he had learned with a serious expression. At this time, Yan Xiongluo followed his ancestor Mu Changling towards the back of the bamboo building where he lived. There is a small road at the back. It looks like it is the road up the mountain. You can't tell it unless you look carefully. It is obviously deserted because no one walks on it often. Yan Xiongluo looked at the direction and found that he was indeed walking towards the mountain. I don't know where the ancestors took her to. Mu Changling is dressed in a white robe, with white hair and beard. Coupled with his unique free and easy temperament, walking on this weed-covered mountain road feels quite otherworldly and fairy-like. Yan Xiongluo felt that she had once read about immortals described in novels, and that was it. When I chose to build the sect here, in addition to gathering spirits here, another important reason is that I discovered a mysterious place here, Mu Changling said as he walked. Yu Xiongluo asked, is this mysterious place where my ancestors want to take me? Mu Changling nodded, yes, the reason why it is described as mysterious is because this place clearly feels that there is something extraordinary inside, but no one can enter. Can't the ancestors go in? Yan Xiongluo asked curiously. Mu Changling shook his head, no, no one can get in yet. Your master and I also brought him here, but he couldn't get in either. Yu Xiongluo was a little disappointed. Even his ancestors and master couldn't enter a place, so it was probably in vain for him to come. But she just thought in her heart, no matter what, it was the intention of her ancestors, and since she was here, she would give it a try. Have all the disciples of the Xuanhuan sect been here? Yan Xiongluo asked again. Mu Changling nodded, as long as you are a disciple of the sect, no matter how talented you are, I will give it a try. Yan Xiongluo was really curious. What kind of place could so many people not be able to enter? What were the restrictions? What are the conditions for entry? Just when she was about to ask something else, Mu Changling pointed to the front and said, right in front. Yan Xiongluo looked in the direction of his finger and saw a cave in front of him. The cave was not big, only one person high, and only wide enough for one person to pass through. It looked nothing special. Standing here and looking over, I don't think there's anything special. Yan Xiongluo glanced behind her to confirm her position. They were probably halfway up the mountain. They are all people with high spiritual power, so it is easy to climb a mountain. If it were Mu Changling himself, he would be there in a teleport. After all, if you break through to the level, you can teleport. In order to take care of her, we came together. The two of them walked to the cave. Mu Changling pointed at the entrance and said, use your spiritual sense to feel it and see if you can sense anything. Hearing this, Yan Xiongluo let go of her consciousness and curiously looked into the cave. In the faint cave, she could sense everything at first, but after a moment, she found that there was a very strong spiritual energy in front of her, but she wanted to find out where the spiritual energy came from. There is no way to detect whether there are any spiritual treasures inside. She withdrew her consciousness and told Mu Changling truthfully, I can't see anything but a very strong aura. Mu Changling nodded and stroked his beard, how do you think the spiritual energy inside is stronger than outside? Yan Xiongluo did some calculations and said, the difference is about 10 times. You must know that the spiritual energy of the higher mainland is very rich, and the spiritual energy of Xuanhuan sect is several times richer than outside because of the spirit gathering array. The spiritual energy in the cave, it is actually more than 10 times richer than the spiritual energy of Xuanhuan sect, which shows how dense the spiritual energy is inside. Yan Xiongluo is really curious, where does such rich spiritual energy come from? Why are they gathered in the cave? Most disciples cannot even sense the spiritual energy, except for some extremely talented disciples who can sense the rich spiritual energy inside, Mu Changling explained. Yan Xiongluo is a little puzzled. Why can't someone feel such a strong spiritual energy? She thought that anyone with spiritual consciousness could sense it. Try it and see if you can walk in, Mu Changling looked at her hopefully. Yan Xiangluo looked at the entrance of the cave and asked, just go in like this. Didn't it mean that no one can enter? Will she hit some invisible barrier when she walks in like this? No matter what method you use, as long as you can get in, Mu Changling said. After all, no one has ever gone in, and no one knows how to get in. For more than 3,000 years, he has used every method he can think of. After finishing his words, he added, however, although we only sensed that the spiritual energy inside was particularly strong and did not sense any danger, we are not sure that there is no danger inside. If you can really go in, it will be fate and life or death. The ancestors can't help you either. Yan Xiangluo's foot that was about to step out was pulled back because of Mu Changling's words about fate. She looked at Mu Changling aggrievedly and said, Ancestor, if I don't bring you to scare people like this, should I go or not? Not going. Mu Changling smiled, you girl, what are you pretending to be here? You can't wait to rush in right away. Yan Xiangluo didn't explain. Her ancestors still didn't understand her. She was a person who cherished her life. For her, it is not easy to have a healthy body, nor is it easy to live happily. Therefore, when faced with any life-threatening danger, she would first retreat unless the temptation was sufficient and she was fully prepared. Just like entering the Lingquan secret realm, wasn't it because she had no choice but to go there? Pangu Huaikai's second level was imminent, so she had no choice but to go in. Mainly because Pangu's space is there, she has the confidence. Otherwise, although she would go in, she would not be so proactive. The current situation, if it were the previous situation, she would never go in. However, her ideological realm changed a lot yesterday because of Mu Changling, which also affected her views and decisions on some things. Opportunities are in front of her, it depends on whether she is brave enough. The path a monk has to take will be accompanied by dangers throughout his life. Danger and opportunities also exist at the same time. Just like her along the way, every huge opportunity is it accompanied by life-threatening dangers. If she hesitates and retreats every time she encounters danger, I'm afraid it will be difficult for her to reach the level of a truly strong person like you, and how will she pass the third level of Pangu flower blooming? I'm afraid it's just a luxury to want to go to Zhekongtian to see the evergreen trees. Yan Xiangluo knew that she had to break through this knot in her heart in order to have higher room for growth. For a monk, having knots in his mind is not a good thing. Yan Xiangluo took a long breath and walked towards the entrance of the cave.